Welcome back to Captains of Industry. With me in studio is Samuel Ogbu, who's CEO of Liberty Properties. Now, Samuel, we've spoken about the business and the industry. I'd like to find out more about the person. You're a chartered accountant, so that's a bit later in life, and in your professional life you've worked in various African countries as well as in the UK.
Yes.
What were your influences, particularly your early influences? What determined the various decisions that you made?
That's a difficult one. I've had the privilege of having many different influences. I suppose that I landed up in England, not necessarily by choice, as a result of we had a civil war in Nigeria, and in the confusion that ensued, I ended up in England. Got a British education. And then my earliest business, I suppose, influences came from fast food. I was a restaurant manager for McDonald's and also for Burger King. I even wrote a paper, university paper, on their entry strategies into the UK. And apparently somewhere along in the world I'm on 2 roles of honour for both companies. So if you want to know about the perfect hamburger, I might be able to help.
And there's a lot to you, many facets. If one looks at your CV, you've done the industrial business, the food, yes, and also beer and soft drinks. So that's the industrial sector, the financial sector, yes, television, media, and now property. What's the common thread there? Is it about management?
People, really, and also a love of a new challenge and something new. Most of the things I've done, I've gone in to change something, to relaunch a brand, to stabilize a brand, to launch a new service. I enjoy putting fresh footprints in virgin sand, and the opportunity to come out to South Africa was just that. We really felt, my wife and I felt, that we could be part of what was happening here. We had something to contribute. We were quite comfortable living in Hertfordshire in England.
I'm sure,
that's why. But the idea of being part of what, for me at the time, was the last great adventure of the 20th century was too much to resist. I didn't plan on ending up selling beer in Soweto, though. I must confess that wasn't in my accountant's forward planning, but it was possibly one of the greatest experiences, and it was a real privilege to have that opportunity to see South Africa, almost the whole of South Africa in microcosm, which I believe Soweto represents. Yeah. You see all levels, all tiers, and you see the challenges, you see the opportunities. I'd start my day, we were living in Northcliffe at the time, which is old money Johannesburg. I might taking a meeting in Park Lane at SA Brewers headquarters there. And then in the evening, I'd be sitting trying to persuade a woman running a shebeen as part-time income to take a few cents off the price of Castle Court if I would give her a fridge or what have you. Yeah. So you're really seeing lots of different things. And I had some wonderful and delightful times seeing people who really understood how to manage money. Yes.
So that was beer in Soweto. So that did sound exciting. Since then, has the dream delivered? You wanted the excitement. You wanted to be part of change.
I think it has delivered in many different ways. Since then, from an adventure in South Africa, it broadened into an adventure in a larger part of Africa with my time at TV Africa, launching free-to-air television services across the continent and seeing the opportunity the media provided and the freeing up of communication. Being there before MTN in Lagos and having to communicate and do business in a very different infrastructure climate in Nairobi, in Lusaka, in wherever. Yes. That was very exciting too. Before moving into perhaps what might consider the more staid environment of financial services. But even then, with joining Sage, a resprayed auditor from Pricewaterhouse in England, having gone through Soweto, shebeens and what have you, here I am. I'm a marketing director. I've got to relaunch a brand of a venerable South African institution called Sage. How does one figure that out? So I've had a lot of opportunity in my life to do things that the script didn't really call for, and they've been fun, they've been challenging. So
doing that, you said working with people, bringing about change with the different industries. What are your tools, your skills? It feels as though you are a people's person. Do you work in a team?
I am. I love working in teams. I love leading teams. I love trying to, actually my definition of superb management is achieving extraordinary results with apparently ordinary people. So I like to try and bring people together and find what sparks them and create an environment where they can really surprise themselves with what they can do. And it always involves other people, it always involves a big idea, a purpose, a reason to give that discretionary effort. Those are the kind of environments I enjoy. And they often occur where there's difficulty, where something that was once great has waned a little bit and needs to be revived, where there's a challenge that wasn't expected that's knocked something out of the way. But the inherent the elements of greatness are still there. And if you can connect with a few people who share your passion, your belief, and who actually know more about what they're doing than you do, that's also often been my lot, in that I work with people who are much more knowledgeable about the industry than I am. But I'm able to bring something different, bring a little spark, put it all together, maybe see a bigger picture, maybe join the dots a little bit easier.
That's the elements of leadership, the way I see it. You need to motivate those around you. How do you yourself stay motivated? What are your inputs?
My wife is a great motivator, because I think she's actually the top executive in our house. She knows a lot more about business than I do, and I learn a lot trying to keep up with her and my two daughters. No, but seriously, I think what motivates me is I believe in what I'm doing. I believe in making a contribution. I'm passionate about making a difference in wherever I am, and there is so much difference to be made in Africa. That just waking up and saying, okay, fine, we've got to try and find a new breakthrough. We've got to do something new in Mitchell's Plain. We've got to do something new in Lusaka. We've got to try and find a way to get into the Nigerian market, because there's so many people that don't have what we have. That sort of thing just keeps me motivated. And when I see other people doing extraordinary things, and I realize they're just ordinary people like me, all the difference is imagination and hard work. That gets me going too.
So that's what you see, I think, the vision that you see, and then you're translating through to your people. In terms of just practically your input, what do you read?
I read voraciously. I'm a bit of a magpie for knowledge. I don't necessarily read books from cover to cover anymore. I just have too much. But my favorite author is William Shakespeare. Unashamedly. I read a lot of philosophy. I read the Bible. I read sacred scripts, and of course I read the management mantras. I read things that somebody has invested themselves into. i.e. they've not written it in order to make a bestseller. It's become a bestseller because they're in it. And that could be anything from fiction, which I don't read much of. My niece is always telling me off because whenever she goes into my library, it's all these factual books and all these, biographies and great people and all that sort of stuff. But for me, that's what gets me going.
You mentioned reading the Bible. You've got a diploma in theology. Where does spirituality
that's not on my CV. Where did you find
that? Where does that fit into what you do, your spirituality?
It is very much key to it. I see myself as somebody who's been blessed by a lot of gifts. I see myself as a person with enormous flaws, and so I hold great hope in the power of forgiveness. I certainly need it. But also I see myself as somebody who's been blessed to be a blessing and to give of myself to others in service to a greater good and a greater end.
I want to go back to the point I made at the beginning about there being many facets to you with the different industries and the different jobs. And I think with time, more recently, it's become quite acceptable to jump ship fairly frequently for every 4 or 5 years, as opposed to the time of my parents, where you stayed with the same employer for life. How do you see that? What would your advice be to young people?
I think it's important to be grounded, and I think it's important to allow yourself sufficient time to get those 10,000 hours that you need to really succeed. Don't be in too much of a hurry to get to the top. You will rise to the top if you acquire the necessary skills and necessary tools, and your gift will find space for you. So take time to nurture your gift, take time to polish your gift, take time, commit yourself to excellence. If you're excellent in any field, you will succeed. So I think there are times when to move on. I think there are times when people can outgrow their particular stage, and it's important to know that. It's also important to know when you've made a bad decision and it's a bad fit. Don't sit there hoping things will change. If you cannot change them or influence the change, it is unlikely that they will change of themselves. So I would caveat that. But the job hopping, it may be great for building up a small, a little bit of wealth and what have you, but really it doesn't build depth. Take your time to choose the right thing and then stick with it until you're the best at it, rather than trying too many things that may or may not work and you end up just being a bit of a butterfly.
Yes, you refer to mistakes, but perhaps in a slightly different context. What's the best mistake you've ever made? In other words, from which you learned a great deal.
I'm not sure about the best, but certainly I think one of the things that stuck with me is when I decided to launch my first business. It really was
hamburgers.
Not hamburgers. No. It was actually it was actually trading. We were trading oil off. We're looking to trade oil off the coast of a certain country that was nameless. There was a war at the time. There was a lull in the war. I didn't do my homework. I didn't check out who my partners were. I didn't have a plan beyond the money we'd make in the first year. And I gave up a perfectly good job without really... I was going to give that job anyway. It was my time to leave. But it taught me the importance of doing your homework. It didn't mean that I didn't still take the odd chance. I think my friends thought I was absolutely insane when I said I'm going to South Africa. But yeah, I think it's important to know who you are and what makes you tick and plan.
Samuel, thank you. It's been lovely talking to you. That's Samuel Ogbu. He's CEO of Liberty Properties. And that's it for this week's edition of Captains of Industry. Until next time, it's goodbye.